Aye, Captain Dan. It's Paul here, calling from Perth in sunny Western Australia. Hope you're doing well, buddy. Let's take a look at this video footage for you and see where we can make some adjustments and improvements. Now, the key thing, as we've started to discuss via Messenger, is this notion that you just don't feel like things are flowing as well as they should. And I was partly correct in thinking and assuming where you're maybe losing a little bit of time in that rhythm and timing, but equally, if you remember me saying, I was saying that you're probably pushing down a little bit on the water. That's partly true, but there's a step before that which we just need to try and address, which will actually make things a little bit better. So let's just watch this shot of you as you come back towards the wall. Here we go. Now we can clearly see, look, how that hand cuts across in front of the head. One of the angles which I'd like to try and get of you swimming, I mean, we can infer it from what we see here, is like a bird's eye shot. So if you imagine a camera here positioned directly above you, watching you swimming directly underneath it, what this would show you is a nice bird's eye shot of your hand coming right across in front of your head. So let's time what happens from the time the hand goes into the water. So somebody who doesn't cross over in front of their head will obviously be able to get into the catch a little bit sooner. Somebody who does cross over in front of their head is going to have to go through a process where the hand crosses over, then presses out, before finally pressing back behind you. So if we said that you're probably engaging the water, as you can see quite clearly here, look, pressing the water back behind you right now, let's get a little bit funky with this. Whoops. And what we'll do is we'll time how long it's taking you to get into that position there. And then if you're into your maths, you can calculate how we can make some adjustments with that. So if we said that at 43.477 seconds, so 1/1000th of a second, you're actually generating true forward propulsion. Let's wind the clock back to the time the hand actually goes into the water. Just here, we've got a full second there, Dan, of you not actually doing anything to drive yourself forwards because of the crossover going in front of the head. Can you see that? So it comes in, crosses over. You're going to see in a moment how this elbow actually drops in the water and the fingertips are actually pushing up towards the surface, which is creating a braking effect and slowing you down as well. But the solution, as I said to you on Messenger, the solution to you turning your arms over quicker and getting the tempo back up to how you used to feel is not simply by giving you a tempo trainer, for example, and saying, hey, look, Dan, you're at 66 strokes per minute at the moment. You need to bump that up to 74 or 75. If you're still doing this big crossover, that's going to be a little bit like driving down the freeway or the M62 with your handbrake still on. We've got to remove that handbrake, and if we remove that handbrake by stopping the hand crossing over, the hand drifting up towards the surface and the elbow dropping down, then automatically we're buying ourselves some extra time there, and the tempo will naturally come up a little bit higher. So we've pretty much, like I say, we've pretty much got one whole second where you're just correcting for what could be corrected within the stroke itself, and that will thereby give you more tempo and fluidity to the stroke. So let's bring in one of my favourite swimmers here. There she is, Rebecca Adlington. Let's drop her in properly and take a look at her stroke here. Unfortunately, Alistair and Johnny haven't given us permission to film their strokes yet, so maybe you can work on them for me and see what we could do with that. But let's just watch Rebecca here, and we'll watch her from that same bird's eye shot. So this is the shot that I'd like to see of your stroke. Look. So from the time she comes into the water, just here, 0.851. She's pretty much immediately, look, getting into that catching position at no more than 0.3 of a second later. Probably even less than that, 0.2 of a second later. So the big difference is she doesn't cross over in front of her head and then have to drift out wide to correct and then inadvertently drop her elbow and push down. She's into the stroke much earlier. You can see it from this angle here, look. Fingertips are below the wrist is below the elbow, tipping her fingertips down, pressing the water back behind her. Now let's bring in one of your other video clips. Probably can go to this one here, I'd say. and look at you from underneath the water. Dun, dun, dun. Now we haven't got exactly the same shots as Rebecca to compare with. Probably still worth your while going to see Russell, you know, to get some video footage of that. But look, you can see it clearly here. Look, let's just wind it back and we'll just zoom in on this one. A little bit blurry, your camera, for some reason. I'm not sure what's happening there. Maybe it's the processing that you've gone through. But look at this. This right arm is pulling through brilliantly well. We want an angle at that elbow of somewhere between 100 and 120 degrees. So 106, mate, you're bang on the money. But it's what happens before that that's throwing you off. Look. So the left one comes in, cuts across in front of the head. Look at how the elbow falls. The palm of the hand is essentially pushing yourself backwards at that point. And then we end up pushing the hand down before eventually getting into this very, very good high elbow catching position. So look, Rebecca looks exactly the same as that, midway through the catch. Boom. Side by side. Former world record holder in the 800 freestyle before Katie Ledecky came on board. Two-time Olympic gold medalist, of course. And look at that. Your arm stroke and her arm stroke, very, very similar. However, wind the clock back a little bit. She doesn't cross over in front of her head. The fingertips are always the deepest point. You do cross over in front of your head. The elbow then falls. We're into this position here where it almost looks like that, whereas Rebecca will actually see the elbow stays as the highest point and then suppresses that water back behind her. So this allows her to clip along. This video clip, let's just watch it. It's crazy, actually. She would swim at an average stroke rate of 86 strokes per minute when she was racing. But even in this video clip here, where she's swimming super smooth, she's swimming at 68 strokes per minute. And the reason she makes that look so smooth is because there is no correction happening up at the front of the stroke. She's not crossing over, sweeping out, pushing down before pressing back. She's just in, extends forwards, and then presses back straight away. So what we've got to do is we've got to actually correct for that crossover. And by removing that bit of a braking action that we see here with the elbow dropping down, the tempo will naturally start to come up a little bit. So let me just grab the old stopwatch here. And we'll just drop in a little bit of different video footage. Let's just go back to the start where you're above the water, so we've got a nice look at this. Here we go, coming down the lap. Let's play it in real time. See how slow it looks? Now, I don't mean that derogatory. I don't mean you are swimming slow. We know that you're swimming around about 120 or 124 per 100. And obviously you want to be quicker, so you probably don't mind me saying that. But what I mean by slow is the tempo of the stroke. Look. 0, 1, 2, 3. That's a stroke rate only just under 50 strokes per minute. So if we look at graphs and charts here, look, and we look at our swim smooth stroke rate ramp table, if you're swimming, like you say, around about 120 or 124 per 100, we extend the vertical line straight up here, we can see that the optimal stroke rate for you to be swimming at would be somewhere between about 58 strokes per minute and even up into the low 80s. You'll appreciate, obviously, in your line of work, sir, as prof, that this is to account for different heights and builds. So, I mean, you're a tall guy and you've got a pretty big albatross wingspan, so you're always going to have a slower stroke rate and a longer stroke than somebody else necessarily, especially somebody short-arsed like myself. But 58 to 80. But if you're down in the low, high 40s, low 50s even, we're operating somewhere down here. So in this blue zone, would suggest that your stroke rate is low. To get quicker, work on lifting the stroke rate. And like I say, there's two ways to do this, the right way and the wrong way. The wrong way is to just grab a tempo trainer. I think you've got one of those. If you haven't, it's a little gadget. Check it out on our website, swimsmooth.com/tempo trainer. We can maybe even get one sent across to you. And if you bumped it up to, let's say you wanted to sit at high 60s or 70 strokes per minute, You could use mode 3 and actually put it in at that point, but that wouldn't solve the problem. So that's the wrong way of doing it. The wrong way of doing it, identify what the stroke rate needs to be, and then just trying to turn the arms over quicker at that tempo without correcting the stroke. However, if we do it the right way, if we correct the stroke first, then the tempo will naturally come up, and that will make the stroke so much more efficient if you do that. So yes, it is on the slow side. There is the ramp test that you said you were interested in doing, but you should do that after you've corrected what we see here. Because there's so much good stuff going on with your stroke. You might not believe me when I say that, but your body position, you can see, look, you're not kicking crazy hard, and yet your heels are breaking the surface of the water. So your body position, horizontal, nice and good. We know that midway through your catch, you're also pulling through well. I love the fact that you're tending to swim with this higher arm recovery action, a la the Brownlees. If we just watch here, look, let's just bring in Rebecca. So Rebecca, as much as we've been using her for as an example underneath the water, of course she's a pure pool swimmer, and she's got the very classic high elbow recovery over the top of the water. You know yourself, you don't need to do this. The Brownlees, check them out here, look, completely different to that, but similarly, very similar underneath the water. Here's Alistair, just get him on after Jodie's finished her thing. There we go. Alistair swimming closest to the camera here. Straight arm recovery over the top of the water. Stroke rate of around about 88 to 92 strokes per minute here. Crazy quick. But he can do that because he's not having to correct anything at the front. He's in and he's back, as in pressing straight back. So there's no crossover. I mean, apart from anything, the crossover that we see within your stroke here is not great for directional ability, so not be able to swim totally straight. It's always going to drag you off in the opposite direction. So if the left hand crosses over, you're going to drift towards your right. If the right crosses over, you're going to drift towards your left, constantly correcting for that. It's also not good for shoulder pain and impingement as well. One of the leading causes of shoulder pain and impingement is a thumb first entry and crossing over in front of the head. And there's obviously an increased risk of you doing that when that hand comes across like this. So why can Alistair sit at 90 and you're sat at 50 strokes per minute? It's because he's not wasting any time correcting for this. That's how we fix the stroke. That's the right way of doing it. Obviously that straighter arm recovery over the top of the water. If you check out one of our coaches from Sweden, this lady called Anna Karin, she went to the 88 Olympic Games. Similarly, she's turning her arms over, quite a high arm recovery action over the top of the water. If we just watch her when she's swimming at real-time speed. There's not a lot of that. Her partner, Bjorn, likes to show her in slow motion all the time. Here we go. Let's just see if we go. It's going to be around about 68, 70 strokes per minute there at real time as well. There you go. Just flows very nicely with that straighter arm recovery. So just going back to what I was saying there, body position's good, catch and pull through is good, arm recovery action is good, but it's this thing at the front that you need to correct. So here's the thing, here's the meat and potatoes. Here is how you correct this down. So a drill which we created that we call the Javelin Drill is ultimately the best way to correcting what you're doing here. Let's just get rid of you there. Let's bring my ugly mug up here. So the emphasis here is to utilize a pair of fins to give you a little bit of kicking action on the side to push yourself forwards, and so you can actually focus on the stroke itself. And secondly, combine it with a pair of these Finis freestyler paddles, shaped like an arrowhead, one strap for the middle finger. On the underside of the paddle is a keel. If you cross over in front of your head, as you're currently doing quite significantly, the paddle's designed to fall off your hand. So completely different to a conventional paddle, which will stay on irrespective of what you're doing with your arm. In fact, if you think about it within the context of your stroke, if you add surface area to the crossover, then it's going to really load up your shoulders in a bad way. So these paddles would be much better. So this is how we do it. We do 25 kick on the side, shoulders back and chest forwards. Just watch this aerial shot in a second. This is me demonstrating the drill. And you'll see, look, that lead arm is super straight out in front. Now, ironically enough, I tend to also naturally cross over with this left arm. So I'm having to think, it might look like a reasonably good demonstration, but I'm actually having to really think about drawing the shoulder blades together and back. So basically good posture. So if your mum and your dad said to you, stand up nice and tall, shoulders back, chest forward, Daniel, that's exactly what you do. And doing that would actually take the hand from here as you've got it to there as we need it. Just get rid of those. Let me carry on. So 25 kick on the side, basically just sort of setting the muscle memory, the tone to where it needs to be. And then we go 25 freestyle, just breathing away from the stroking arm. Now that tempo looks quite slow as well, but it's still a lot quicker than what you're doing. The tempo, that is, the stroke rate, and not the speed that you're swimming at, but the tempo. And it's quicker simply because there is none of this correction happening up at the front. It's straight in, it's tipping the fingertips down, and then it's pressing back. So you don't need to go like a madman. You don't need to go at 90 strokes per minute like the Brownlees, for example. But we do need to reduce the crossing over and the time it's taking you to actually get into your stroke. And that's what I see with your stroke, is it's just extra time, additional time to get into the stroke that we don't need to be we don't need to have. So let's just see. I'm not sure how closely we could see this. Did you come past the? Here we go. Look. Oh yeah, we might be able to get a view. Oh, perfect! Look at that. Oh. Getting excited here. Look at that. So, whoops. Let's bring you back. Just changed some of my gestures on my computer just recently. I just need to. There we go. That's better. So there's the surface of the water, and look at this. Public enemy number one. Oh, bugger. Sorry. Let's just bring it back. Here we go. Public enemy number one. There we go. Look. So you see how the hand is reaching up towards the surface, applying that braking effect, like so. Now let's consider this. I did this with non-Stanford actually back in 2013, prior to Jack obviously getting her to win the World Champs in 2013. We had a video analysis with her, and she was over kicking was non and not really getting to the catch very, very well. Most swimmers will do what you're doing here. They'll reach in and the hand will drift up. Part of your reason behind doing this is you're not purposely trying to overglide, although that is the result of this. What you're doing is obviously the crossover. But if we think about the theoretical 180 degrees that you have to go through the catch and pull through, so starting at 0 degrees here and working back to 180, most of us would think that surely it makes sense to actually start from 0 and maximize the stroke to work back to 180. But given limitations in flexibility and the way the biomechanics of the stroke, if you reach in and reach up, you're going to spend the next part of your stroke just pushing water away from yourself or straight down. You're not actually into the stroke until around about here. So this whole zone from here to here has just been wasted time. We know that, we've timed it. We need to move on from that. But if we just bring in now 23-time Olympic gold medalist Michael Phelps, Sir Michael Phelps, if he was in the UK, no doubt. Let's watch this. So let's just hold you fire for a second. So what do we know about Phelps? We know he's tall, we know he's got a massive reach, we know he's got long strokes, but what we don't often appreciate is how those strokes are actually very, very quick as well. So his stroke rate would typically be in the 72 to 76 strokes per minute. Let's just watch him here. What's the difference? Well, the difference is, like Rebecca Adlington, like the Brownlees, like everyone we've discussed, he doesn't cross over in front of the head and he spears down, look. He doesn't reach up to the surface. He doesn't drop the elbow. Now, we ran a really popular blog. We've got a blog that we put out every Friday afternoon. Let's just see if we can get this in here a bit better. Here we go. And this blog goes out to about 120,000 people worldwide. Now, if we just get rid of that one. Let's just highlight that there. Sorry about that. Let's just pause you. So it goes out to 120,000 people, and we ran a really popular blog. And the title of the blog was, "Is your elbow really low or is your hand too high?" So when we look at you side by side with Michael Phelps, I'll just wind you back here, it's easy to say that Michael Phelps has got a higher elbow than you, and certainly it probably is fractionally higher, but to me the major difference is where he's actually spearing those fingertips. Like, you're reaching in and drifting up, he's reaching in and spearing down. Get that right, combined with stopping the hands crossing over in front of the head, and obviously the two things work side by side, and that's how you're going to get that stroke rate lifted up, down. That's how you're going to get the rhythm back within the stroke. Now, the final drill that I just want to show you, so Phelps, look, he doesn't utilize this first 10 or 15 degrees. He actually spears beyond it, spears deeper than it, in order to then get himself into that catch position. And look, he does it on every single stroke. That's the difference between you and him from the front. Plus the fact that he's got 23 Olympic gold medals as well, but who's counting? Right, okay, so let's finally then just look at one other drill which will tune this up for you. Sculling. Pull boy between the legs, arms out in front of you, sculling in and out. How do you move forwards? Exactly the same way we've been discussing throughout this entire analysis. Fingertips below the wrist below the elbow, like you're hugging a Swiss ball. How do you not move forwards? You do what you're doing in your stroke at the moment. You drop your elbow and you allow the fingertips to come up, and suddenly we're pushing backwards. Watch it here. That might seem like an extreme exaggerated position, but we've certainly seen your elbows that low in the water with the hands drifting up towards the surface. So correct the crossover, focus on where you're spearing to, use the Javelin Drill and the sculling drill there in combination, and you should definitely be able to get this rocking much better, Dan. Other than that, I wouldn't try and fix too much else. I mean, you're a great swimmer, you're a great athlete. You know that you've been there. I think sometimes, especially if you haven't been doing that much swimming, you sort of drift out of this, and there's almost a temptation to think, I'm not fit enough to sustain a high enough stroke rate. And whilst that might well be, whilst that might well feel the case, remember the reason the stroke rate is so slow at the moment is because of that 1 second within every single stroke that you're spending time crossing over, correcting, and then pressing back, compared to an elite swimmer who would be into their stroke from the hand entry into the true catch within around about 0.2 or 0.3 of a second. That's a big difference. You can do the maths behind that. So you're sort of giving away 0.7 of a second, so 1 minus 0.2 or 0.3, let's say 0.7 of a second on every single stroke. You're certainly going to, well, I mean, you do the maths behind that, you're talking about 20 strokes per minute difference, and that would be where that stands up to. Okay, hope that all helps. Drop me a line, let me know how you're going. Good to speak to you. Thanks, bye.